Back in like 2012, my family and our grandparents decided to go to Kansas City, where we could feed animals at the zoo there, instead of the one in St. Louis. It seemed like a good idea at that time. I was 8, way younger and dumber than I am currently. We planned to stay for 2 days. We had gotten a hotel room, was going to spend the night, and go to the zoo the next day. We went swimming in the hotel pool and afterwards went to a nearby Pizza Hut to get food. After all that, we came home to rest, being prepared for the day ahead. In the middle of the night, my brother got sick, really sick. And at that time he was only 3, making the situation worse. Because of insurance and other dumb factors, the only hospital we could go to, that would help my brother, was back where we lived, and that was 4 hours away. My grandparents stayed with me and my sister for the night at the hotel, while my parents rushed my brother to the hospital as fast as they could. They were gonna get some unexpected sort of help, but they didn't know that at the time. My dad is Muslim, an Islamic follower from Pakistan. In Islam, there are these beings known as jinn, which are said to be made from smokeless fire. They resembled ghosts, and only certain people could see them. My dad was one of them, and around a year later on another trip we realized my brother can see them too. Anyways, let's get back to the story. After driving for like 3 hours, they reached Hannibal, Missouri. Now, if anyone knows anything about Hannibal, it's not that small. Making it from one side to the other takes a little time. Where we lived was a town called Quincy, straight east of Hannibal. My parents used this older GPS at that time, and it had them turn down this sketchy abandoned road. It was around midnight, so it was dark outside, and the only light came from was the car's headlights. As they were driving, my dad started looking a little worried. He is not like that. He's either happy or mad. Those are basically his only 2 emotions. My mom noticed this and asked what was wrong. My dad said, "There is jinn everywhere. If your mom were here, she would have had a heart attack by now." As he said that, they felt a whoosh of air and immediately found themselves on the complete opposite side of Hannibal, 20 minutes closer to home. They had just entered Hannibal, and they were already on the bridge, crossing into Quincy within seconds. Whatever happened, it probably saved my brother's life, and he is still here today, doing fine. This was a very traumatic experience for me, and it took me quite some therapy to get back on track. My family was on vacation and I stayed home so I could do my own things. 2 of my friends and I had planned to meet up, bake pancakes, watch a movie, and just have a good time. We were having fun baking, until the doorbell rang. My friend, we'll call her Flora, went to open the door and I followed her, because it was my house after all. It was a short guy, in a dark blue sweater and gray sweatpants. He said he had a meeting with my dad. Now, I knew this wasn't right. My dad doesn't work with guys his age, let alone do they come to our house when my dad is on vacation. This is where it started to get creepy. He insisted me to go with him, to show the way. I refused, not wanting to go out in the dark with a stranger, whom I already found suspicious. He insisted and I told him no again, and started to close the door. He stuck his foot between the doors and stepped inside. He grabbed my middle, squeezed me and said, "Do you want sex?" I don't know where the sudden bravery came from, but I managed to push him outside and close the door. I told my friend to lock it. I started shaking all over, couldn't even cry. After I had somewhat calmed down, we called the police. They came by and that night, I stayed at my other friend's house, spending the night in blind terror. After that, I got scared of everything. I couldn't open the door, answer the phone, or go outside, without being afraid of getting attacked, killed, or raped. An arm around my middle, something that wasn't odd for friends to do, would give me a panic attack. It's been over 2 years, but I still feel the panic whilst writing this. Don't trust strangers. I wasn't home alone at my house. I was at a friend's house, but we were home alone together there. Anyway, my friend's house was huge, like seriously big. She had a mother-in-law's apartment that was attached to the house. My friend, let's call her Tina, invited me over for a sleepover. Her mom and stepdad both worked at night, and her little step-siblings were over at their dad's house. So we were all alone in this huge house. Of course, being 2 dumb 7th graders, we decided to watch horror movies and completely scare the crap out of ourselves. After watching The Shining and Psycho, we were both pretty scared, so we sat in her room and watched YouTube. Tina had left the curtains wide open and we could see down her lawn and into the woods. Her whole house is surrounded by woods, and that just made the fact we were home alone creepier. We had left the lights off, since we wanted to see out the windows, in case a fictional serial killer showed up outside. So, we had a clear view of the dark woods. After a while, we left off watching YouTube and just talked and looked out the window. That's when the metaphorical shit hit the fan. Out of nowhere, I noticed something moving in the darkness of the woods, so did Tina. We wrote it off as a wild animal at first. Maybe a bear or something. There were plenty of bears in the area, so it was a perfectly reasonable guess. Then it started coming out of the woods until we could make out some more details. Now, I've seen many, many bears, and my area is full of them. Bears can do weird things, and they've scared me before. But I know damn well no bear should walk on its hind legs like that. And I also know that humans are not 8 feet tall. Whatever it was vaguely humanoid, but it clearly wasn't a person, and it certainly wasn't a bear either. Tina and I were shitting our pants now, and just sitting silently on her bed, watching that thing. It was on the lawn now, and I could see it pretty clearly. I have no words for what that thing was, other than it wasn't human. It was tall, at least 8 feet. Its skin was sort of gray, and it was bald. Tina was crying now, and we jumped off the bed and crouched on the floor next to the window. We could still look out, but if it came closer, it wouldn't be able to see us. The thing did get closer, and I saw its face. Its eyes were black and sunken, and it didn't have a nose. It had Voldemort-esque slitted nostrils in its face. Its teeth were pointed and looked more like an animal's than a human's. The creature sat there on the lawn before it suddenly turned and bounded off into the woods. At that point, I was crying too, and we just sat there by the window, shaking. Eventually, her parents came home and we told them about the creature, but they didn't believe us. I don't entirely believe my own eyes. I have no idea what that thing was, or what it wanted, but I don't think I want to find out. Could it have been a Wendigo? Either way, it was completely terrifying and completely bewildering. Tina and I decided to never speak to our friends of what we saw. I never told my parents, although my mom might have believed me. It was just too confusing. I have been back to Tina's house, and she says she has never seen that thing again, neither have I. But she's a lot more cautious in those woods now. Just in case it decides to come back.